using a soft drink can box. I'm working on my potion cabinet, so what I'm doing is measuring in by 2.5 centimeters and then scoring along that line. And another 2.5 centimeters. And then I'm going 6 centimeters. And then we're going 2.5 again. And then 2.5 again. And we're cutting it off at that point. And then I'm turning my card sideways. And we're going to be measuring up by 2.5 centimeters. And then marking in 11 centimeters. So on the 2.5 centimeter mark, we're just scoring along that line. And then measuring down by 11. And then scoring along there. And then cutting off 2.5 centimeters past that. I've turned my card sideways again, so I've got the score lines coming down this way, and now what we're doing is along the mark where we've got the 5 centimeters here, I'm marking up from the fold over of the 2.5 centimeters. I'm just going up by 2.5 centimeters, and I'm cutting a strip out just to our divide line that we drew. So I've marked where I'm going to be cutting to. So I'm just cutting just that small section. So and then going up 2.5 centimeters and then 2.5 centimeters and cutting as well. So it looks like that. And now I'm going to paint it. So the parts that I'm painting is just the top part here and this piece, which is the first bend on our piece. I'm painting that one and that one at the back. So I'm not painting any of the center pieces here. And I'm painting those black. To make my shelves, I'm using a 2-liter soft drink bottle, and I'm cutting the top off and the bottom off and then slicing it down the middle. Once I've sliced it down the middle, I'm cutting it along the line here so that I'm left with a small piece like that. And then just measure the 6 centimeters and go in by 2.5 centimeters and then fold it over at the 2.5 centimeter mark and then take something flat. I'm just using the back of my box cutter and flatten the piece. So you've got a little shelf that looks like that. To make the door for my potion cabinet, I've done the exact same measurements as what the box is. So it's 6 centimeters across and going up to 11 centimeters there. And then I've added an extra centimeter so I can get a decoration going on the top. And then I'm going in by 1 centimeter on all the size that the box is. And now you're going to need 3 pieces. So you're cutting one piece out with the 1 centimeter. So this one is the 1 centimeter one. And we're going to be cutting all of that out and just leaving the shape. I've got 2 of them marked at 1 centimeter borders like that. And we're cutting that center piece out. And the next one, we're going in by 0.5 centimeter on all the sides and 0.5 centimeter down from the top of the door. And then we're just going to cut that piece out. I've got my 3 pieces cut out, and now I'm taking the small one and going to be gluing it onto that one and then painting the front of that black. And on the other one, I'm flipping that over and painting the other side black. I'm using T8000 to do that. I've got these flexible mirrors, and I'm going to be taking one of those and cutting it to size and putting it inside my potion cabinet, and then we're going to be gluing all these little pieces down on the sides like that. I've got my little cabinet all glued together, and I've taken a 2.5 centimeter strip and just painted it black. And now we're going to just glue that around the whole cabinet so that it keeps our little pieces from flapping. For my doors, for the little glass or plastic window that I'm using, I've just got some packaging which I'm going to be cutting a small piece out to make the door like that. And I'm going to be gluing it between the two pieces that we made so it'll fit in those pieces. And I'm using T8000 to glue it all in. I've put my glass shelves in for little plastic shelves to see that they fit properly. And now I'm going to just take a thin piece of masking tape and just neaten up all these edges by going around each of them to just close them in nicely, and then paint those all black. Doing the sides that have got the shelves in them, you have to cut your masking tape so that you're not sealing the shelf in until we've removed the backing paper on the mirror at the back. To make the legs, I've got these tiny little beads, so I've got some silver ones and some black ones, and I'm taking one silver and putting a little black in between them and another one on top, and I'm using these pinhead findings to just thread them on so that it's easy for me to glue. So that's what the leg will look like, and I'm just going to paint them all black. If I was making this for my dollhouse, then I'd be putting hinges on to the door, but because this is just a small little decoration, I'm not going to go to the trouble of putting hinges on. All I'm going to be doing is taking some masking tape and gluing the door on this side, like that, and then painting that black. And then on the inside, I'm going to put another piece of masking tape going across there, so it gives it more of a nice opening and closing to it. And then you just paint all the tape black. And then just remember to cut through where you've got your little shelves that are going to be going in. So there's our little door that opens and closes quite nicely. I've glued the legs on, and now I'm taking some of my findings. So I've got this really cute, attractive looking little finding like that, which I'm going to be gluing onto the top. And for the handle, once again, I've got a tiny little finding like that, and I'm just taking the little silver ball from an earring. I'm going to glue that on top and then glue it onto there. I'm using T8000 to do that. I poked a little hole in the side like that so that I can bend this little wire over, so when I attach my magnet, it's got something to attach onto. I've got these really tiny little magnets like that, and I've just taken one and glued it onto the side here so that it closes nicely, so when it's standing upright. And I've glued all the other pieces on, and now we can remove this piece and set all our little bottles up. Take the protective cover off the mirror. I'm just taking some tape and putting it on, and then it should just peel off when you pull. So there's my little potion cabinet completed. I've got all my little tiny bottles that I made inside there. So there's the little completed cabinet. Pretty happy with the way that turned out. If you found this video helpful or you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Really appreciate it if you would subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.